Bowl team and now these haters salty. Rockin' Zenny shades to the championship ship. That Nick Bosa drop him hard like a hit stick. The Jimmy Ward intercept him with a big six. Like Debo, we gon' knock him like a brick. The Trey Lance play action to a drop back. When the blitz coming quick, the old line gon' block that. RPO with Kyle Juice. With Mitchell and George Kittle, can't nobody stop that. Stand behind Kyle Shanny all the way. It's like a game of chess when he call the play. Brendan Ayuk on the center fade. Bang, bang, Niner gang all day.
All right. Videos courtesy of NFL.com. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to IE Sports Radio. I'm Niners Jess, along with Ty Alston, Maddie B, and your girl Bex. We are the East Coast Red and Gold. What's going on?
What up, faithful?
Hey.
How's everyone doing?
Here we are again.
Sliding into Wednesday already.
Yes.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Coming in hot.
Our special guest will be joining us actually now. Let's bring him right in.
Look at that. Timing.
Timing is everything.
Perfect
Leap of
timing.
faith
Larry
right
Krueger,
into
the
it.
Krug Show. Welcome.
Hello. How are you guys doing?
Good. How are you?
Better
Sorry,
now that
right.
you're here.
I'm running 4 minutes late, as you can tell.
That's okay. Perfect timing.
Worked perfectly. Like you didn't have to sit through the interview. Like you missed out on the backstage stuff, but other than that, like you're ready to go. So this is
Right.
It's like
Matt
my
kept
academic
messages
stuff,
before
man.
every show, so that's what you missed,
That's exactly what happened. Good stuff.
It's like high school, always get there just a little fashionably late.
Right. Like right before they're about to lock the door, like you
Yeah.
slide right in. Like, yeah. Sorry, teach.
All right. Larry, thanks again for coming on the show.
Sure.
Before we get into all the 49ers talk, for those who don't know you, which I think that's impossible because you're an absolute legend. Let's
Wow.
talk a bit about your background, your career, how you got started, and up until this point.
Well, it's a long story. Why don't you guys know? No, I always loved sports as a kid. And I played sports in high school, went to Sac State, didn't plan on playing any sports, played lacrosse, and was just a guy that I knew in college who was a good friend of mine. His dad just happened to be the coach of the Sac State football team. He heard me talking football one day. He told me I should take his class, which was a coaching of football course. And I did. And then we became friends. And then he had me helping recruiting. Then he went to the Canadian Football League. Right as I graduated college, he invited me to interview for the job with the head coach. I did. It led to a lot of contacts in the NFL and Canadian League. I scouted with the Cardinals, had good friends scouting with the Raiders at the time. And I just kind of was looking for something to do in between like the weekends, because I was doing a lot of pro personnel scouting for the Cardinals on the West Coast, and just kind of stumbled into Sports Byline USA. They needed like a affiliates relations director. A guy was leaving to go work for Mike Montgomery at Stanford, Jamie Zaninovich, who now became the commissioner of the Pac-12 or assistant commissioner of the Pac-12. Now I think he's moved on to his own, or no, I think he's still the assistant commissioner of the Pac-12. So I replaced him and started booking guests for Ron Barr and producing and negotiating with radio stations on programming. Once I started listening to the programming, I realized, hey, you know what? I can actually do this. I felt like I could. I really always thought of these guys as awesome. And then once I heard it, I was like, I could probably do that. So then I tried out and they said, no, you can't do it. And I said I could. They let me fill in. This is like mid 90s. So now I'm scouting football players and I'm kind of dabbling in broadcasting. And then eventually I went to KMBR in 97 and said goodbye to like the football career, because it was kind of a conflict of interest. And then I've just kind of devoted my entire life since 1997 to just being radio. And now I've been on radio, Sirius XM, satellite, KGO, KMBR, now 95.7 The Game. And now I've started my own YouTube channel, and it's kind of like my life project, and I'm enjoying it quite a bit.
It's quite the resume.
Yeah.
Do we have time for anything more? Should we all just go home? That's a wrap.
Yeah.
It's like that Simpsons meme where Grandpa walks into the restaurant and walks out. Like, all right. Well, thanks.
Yep.
And we're
Thank
out.
you.
Yep, that's where we're at. Thank
Puts
you.
his hat down, puts his hat back on, he walks out.
So, getting into the 49ers talk.
Yeah.
Since you've been doing this, what's your favorite 49ers memory?
Ooh. I mean, like since I've been in media, or I mean, I grew up in the Sunset District. My dad worked in the San Francisco City Attorney's office. I was 11 years old when the Niners won it in '81. He had the balcony next to the mayor's balcony, which overlooked the whole Super Bowl celebration ceremony. I
Oh,
stood
wow.
right there on that balcony in the middle of Civic Center as an 11-year-old and looked over the masses and just was like, look at the sea of people, and it was just the greatest thing I could ever. So that to me would have to be, kind of supersedes all else. I mean, the Niners when we were kids, people would call or you'd see them at church. I got an extra ticket to the game. Do you want to go? Like all throughout the 70s, and that just ended in 1981, and I don't think it's ever returned to that point. So it was kind of a sharp divide in Niner history between pre 81 and post 81.
Wow.
It's a really good point.
Yeah.
Can I you good?
Go ahead.
You got one?
No, go
I was
ahead.
going to ask, you've been watching this team a long time. It's to the point now where you can probably see some similarities between teams across the years. I continue to look at this one and I see a ton of things happening with this defense, and it reminds me of the '94 team. The Hargrave coming over from Philly reminds me of Norton coming over from the Cowboys. We replaced about, I think, 7 players from '93 and replaced them with 9, including guys in the draft. And they kind of changed things up to even draft Bryant Young in the first round in '94. This team kind of puts off that same sort of vibe. It just doesn't have the same sort of answer at quarterback. Is that kind of like, do these teams
Dude, I
kind of
think
run
you,
together but have some similarities at times?
yeah, I mean, I think you pegged it. I mean, I really do. I was saying that to somebody not that long ago, just a couple days ago, about how it does remind me in '94, the beginning of free agency when the Niners loaded up with Carmen Policy and Hargrave. I actually, it reminds me of that team because this might be the first time since that team where the 49ers have 2 guys on the inside that both have to be combo blocked. You got Armstead and Hargrave, just like you had
Yep.
BY and Stubby way
Stubby.
back then. So
Yep.
I think there's a lot of similarities. And I'll say this, if you said to me, that team got over the hump, we'll see about this team, right? What was that team's final push to get over the top, if you will? Dion. And what's this team's final push going to be over to get over the top? In my opinion, it's not necessarily Dion because there's only one Dion, but a big, smothering, dominant outside corner who can just say, hey, opposing team's number 1 receiver, that's me, and allow Charvarius to kind of settle in at, the number 2 receiver if possible. I know Charvarius was signed here to be that guy, but if they could add one, I mean, you can never have enough corners. And to me, the Niners are really good on all levels of their defense, but that one dominant, big-bodied, long-armed, snuff you out like a candle corner, that could be the difference to them getting over the top. We'll see if they can find it.
I think the draft could be a good spot to find that. This is a pretty deep draft for corners and tackles. And if there's one thing the 49ers need right now, it's corners and tackles.
Yeah. Yeah. And obviously they're looking in all corners, right? They bid on Lonnie, or at least they talked about Lonnie Johnson, who's a big corner. And, look at the impact of Sauce Gardner with the Jets last year. He had a huge impact. So, there's a number, the nice thing about this year's draft, as you stated, there's a lot of good corners, and, they worked out. I did a video today on a guy that I kind of like, Terrell Smith from University of Minnesota, who's probably more of like a day 3 sleeper, but he's kind of a big body dominant corner, 6 feet, 210, long arms, shut you down kind of a guy. Darius Rush is another guy. There's some good sized corners in this draft. Julius Brents from K-State, and right in that 3rd round range, I think Brents may be there. Riley Moss, Darius Rush, Terrell Smith. They're all going to be in that right around 90 to 120, somewhere in there.
And who do you think we bring in?
It's really hard to say. I think Darius Rush is a natural. The Niners have gone with South Carolina players a lot. This guy's 6'2", 200 pounds. He's got a future maybe at free safety. Really, really attractive prospect. Did well on all. You're talking about an all academic honor roll player, not just a great player on the perimeter, but also a really smart player. Came to college as a wide receiver and then transitioned to cornerback. So I like that profile because that usually means they understand the mentality of a receiver, which is a big part of it. So yeah, I mean, this guy's already graduated with a degree and working on a master's degree. So I mean, you're talking about the kind of guy that could come in and physically be great, mentally be great, just be that kind of that rare rookie that could step in and play right away. I think Rush is that guy.
Nice.
So speaking of South Carolina products, Javon Kinlaw, what do you think is going to happen with him?
It's a tough one because they won't cut him because there's just no cap advantage to do so. And then it's also about like, just because he's not a starter next to Hargrave or Armstead doesn't mean that you couldn't use him. And look how many D linemen the Niners typically have. You just know if you traded him, you're going to be looking for another D tackle at some point this year. So that's also kind of a tough road to cross. How do you get rid of your water supply when you're going on a cross country hike or something? You know what I mean? It's a tough call, but then you also have to kind of factor in personalities. And I don't know that he's got the personality that's going to thrive in a backup role. I know he thinks of himself as a starter, as a very good player. He really looks up to Eric Armstead. So, as long as Armstead was there, I think Kinlaw would be really, I did an interview with him last year. You can watch it on YouTube where he basically said that Armstead was one of the most important people in his life. So I think Eric's much more than just a football teammate to him. But I think that maybe he needs to move somewhere else. I had suggested that, I don't like what you're not going to get more than a 5th or a 6th round pick in return. So, I mean, even though the Niners have turned 5th round picks into gold many, many times over, do you want to go that route? That's still kind of a risk. Or do you find somebody who's kind of in his boat, he didn't have his 5th year option picked up, still on their team. There's a number of guys that are in this boat that are supposedly being shopped as we approach the draft. Noah Igbenogany for Miami, the corner. Niners need a corner. He's in the same boat as Kinlaw. Mekhi Becton. Niners need a right tackle. Kinlaw, Salah's there in New York, and Kinlaw and Becton has had problems. He's got a bum knee. Kinlaw's got a bum knee. Maybe it's a change of scenery. Clyde Edwards-Helaire in Kansas City is another guy. Didn't have his 5th year option picked up, was a 1st round pick, kind of viewed as a kind of a failed 1st round pick, but he's a nice little player, so it really kind of depends if they could find a match. I think that might be the best way to go. See if you can either use Kinlaw to move up or down in the draft for a player you want, or see if you can find a match with a veteran that another team, for whatever reason, is looking to move off of, and maybe you could do a swap. Those trades rarely work out, but there aren't a lot of trades in the NFL, period.
Yeah, that's true.
Not a lot of risk.
Yeah. I think he sticks around. I don't think he's going to go anywhere this year.
If they can get, the one thing about him last year is he just got worse and worse and worse. I thought his best ball was when he first came off the injured list, and it makes me think that once the knee pain starts to creep in, that he starts to becoming, his production curve relates directly to that knee. Because if you look at him, he played well, and then a little bit worse, a little bit worse, a little bit worse. By the Philly game, he couldn't anchor. He couldn't stand in against the run. He wasn't giving him anything as a rusher. So he's got a lot of talent, though. That's for sure.
Yeah, he does. As far as free agency goes, with whoever the Niners extended or brought in, who's your favorite signing?
Well, the obvious one is Hargrave, right? Because they paid him so much. And I was saying for weeks after the end of the year, D tackle, because that's the way this team's built. It's built on moving the quarterback, off the spot, having that two-way player that has to be combo blocked. Then I looked at all the great teams and all the Super Bowl winners in the last decade. It's almost to a man, they had two guys on their front four that had to be comboed. Whether it be Frank Clark and Chris Jones or Von Miller and Derek Wolfe or, you name it. Whoever won the Super Bowl had two guys up front that really had to be combo blocked. But I'll say John Feliciano, because I think Feliciano is a really, really solid player. He's a starter. He's not a backup. He can play center if Brendel, for whatever reason, gets hurt. There's regression there. You always want to be covered at center. So he's a multi-position guy. He's a significantly better, more powerful, more stout run blocker than Daniel Brunskill. I think there's potential for him to start at right guard and kick Burford to right tackle, at least maybe a competition with Burford and McKivitz for that right tackle. So I think there's coverage there. I just like it. He's smart. He's tough. It's a you can say whatever you want about different schemes. At the end of the day, what you really need offensive linemen. It's the beginning of your whole offense starts with your line, but it's like you got to have at the end. I've seen tall guys, short guys, thick guys, thin guys, guys who are juniors, guys who are seniors, all different kinds of prospects. It really just comes down to you got to have in this offense football intellect, because there's formation variation and shifts and motions, and it's vast. There's a lot to learn. So you need really smart players, and they have to be tough. And toughness is a hard thing to measure. So that's why the draft always makes me kind of, because you can hit and miss in the draft because you don't really know these guys. Once you get in the league, you get a much better feel for how a guy, what his habits are, how tough of a guy is, how he plays. And I just think Feliciano, I've loved him since he was with Miami. I mean, you got to know his story. He lived in a trailer. It was condemned. He lived at a friend's house for a year and a half. His mom beat cancer twice while he was in high school. This guy's been through a lot, and he's just a tough-minded guy who's made his money. He's played his football. I saw an interview with him he did about a month ago where he just said, hey, you know what? I'm all about the ring. And I just really think that you don't get the Super Bowl ring unless you have a core of at least 15, 20 guys of your 53 that are they're hell-bent on just that and that alone. They're not worried about their contract or their playing time. They just want that ring. He's in that mode. I think he's going to be an awesome addition.
That's awesome.
Austin Bryant's a Niner, by the way. That's a deal.
Yep.
That's a thing. His 49er minded.
Breaking news.
That's big.
In the comments.
What do you guys think of that?
I like it.
Chris Kachurik. I picture Chris Kachurik as like the salt guy, dropping the salt on these guys, the magic Chris Kachurik dust.
The magic crystals.
Just sprinkling on top of him, and then and then he just steps away and makes it happen. So my guess is he probably likes it, and if he likes it, I like it. So I think that's a pretty good move.
I'm with you on that. I think that's a great take. Why? Because guess what? I'd never heard of Kerry Hyder when they signed him, and now I'll go into that room and talk to those guys. To a man, they'll tell you Kerry Hyder's got the best motor in the entire room. Kerry Hyder could be like buried underneath dirt. Guys could be walking on top of him, and he would still get up and like try to sack the quarterback. He's got like a legendary motor, and Chris only goes for guys who have that motor revved up. So, that's the one thing about Cleveland Farrell. I don't love Cleveland Farrell, but the one thing that is undeniable, talk to everybody, college or pro, his motor plays very hard. And I just think in this scheme where it's a one gap penetrating, get up the field scheme, play the run kind of on the way to the quarterback, really get up the field and make the quarterback feel the heat. I think, Chris knows what he needs. It's kind of reminds me, I was watching the movie Miracle about the Miracle on Ice. And I don't know if you guys saw it, but Kurt Russell plays the coach, and he's like, I know what I need. I know my team. And in a lot of ways, Chris is like that. It's like he knows what he needs.
Love it.
Let him tell you both in the draft and in free agency which guys he needs, and then go get them.
And that's
Stay
what
out
he's
of his
done
way,
the past
'cause
few seasons.
What's that?
That's what he's done the past few seasons.
Yeah, exactly. He's got a good eye for it. He really does. I mean, I'll say this, even, a guy that I interviewed 2 or 3 times late in the year, T.Y. McGill. How good was
Yeah.
McGill for the Niners?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Good
Shooting
call.
gaps and
Yep.
playing snaps and good against the run, give a little pass rush. I mean, so they got a good eye for that. I mean, that's really why you got to, there's a couple reasons you got to feel great about the Niners. And that's one of them right there, is that they got a couple different coaches on the staff that seem to have a good sense of what players they need to compete.
Bobby Turner, somebody you can put in that as well, even though he was, off last year. Like,
Yeah,
same sort of dude.
Bobby T is definitely like that. I mean, I think Chris
Forrester.
Chris Forster,
Mhm.
CFO they call him.
Mhm.
He's got a good eye for it. I thought Zakel, Poe, the way how many teams can take a 4th round draft choice? Wasn't Burford a 4th rounder? And plug him in as a starter on a team that went to the playoffs and get away with it. I mean, they're very young with Banks and Burford, and they 2 real nice pieces there. So yeah, they got a couple coaches that have a real good eye for the kind of players they need.
Yeah, I wasn't a big fan of the Cleveland Farrell signing either, but when you think of Chris Kasarik, it's all is well. Everything will be fine.
Yeah, I mean, Farrell doesn't wow you, but the one thing that we saw last year that I could totally see Cleveland doing really well is when they went to, in the obvious passing downs, they just took all their tackles off the field. Now, with Hargrave, I doubt that will happen too much, but it's always nice to be able to have interior rushers. And that's what I think Farrell gives you, is you can put him in an obvious passing down inside, and he'll play the run well enough where he's a nice piece in there. He's a good fit.
So now, we lost 11 guys, who not necessarily detrimental to the team, but who do you think is going to be a big loss for us?
Jimmy Ward. Jimmy Ward's a culture player, and he was incredibly physical, and he was smart, respected, and he could play almost any position in the secondary. I mean, that was a major loss. I mean, they, for sure Jimmy Ward, and maybe a little bit lesser Emmanuel Mosley, but Mosley was coming off the ACL. You have some younger players there. That's bad too, but it's definitely Jimmy Ward. Like, Jimmy Ward is a tone-setting player, and every team's got a few of them. You need them, and just very physical, very smart, physical. I mean, it can be a tough guy to replace. I mean, I would say they're going to have to commit at least 2 draft choices, maybe more, to trying to find somebody who can play all the positions he could play. Just so they're covered. Losing that one player really hurt, I think.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Him and Emmanuel Mosley. I know he's coming off the injury, but I think those are the 2. We have 11 picks in the draft. Do we use all 11?
Well, that's a great question. And it's a good debate to have. Like, do you trade up at the beginning of the draft for somebody special that you see that might fall in the 2nd round? Do you get a tackle in free agency, or are you still looking for that tackle? Those tackles, once they're gone, they're gone. But at the same time, look at how well the Niners have done with all these picks. And it's like, you know what? Just acknowledge there's going to be a failure rate. You're going to miss on a couple. So, I'd rather take 11 bites of the apple. But you never know. I mean, if you told me, like, there's a handful of players that I think are really, really special. If there was a special player at a position of need and he fell for whatever reason, and you felt like, oh wow, he's there in the middle of the 2nd round, and we got 3 threes, and we might be able to use a couple of them and move up, or maybe use Kinlaw and a couple of them and move up, or who knows, something like Ambry Thomas. I think I could see them moving Ambry Thomas. I could see teams having interest in Ambry. Hasn't worked out here. If there was a player at a position of need, I would absolutely do it. It's hard, but it's hard. It's hard to say, because there's once you get to, most people believe that, like, once you get outside the top 15, like, everybody between 15 and like 100 is not that different. So sometimes it's difficult to maneuver in the 2nd and 3rd round.
Yeah, that's definitely true. How about right tackle? What do you think they'll do there?
Well, I know Jonah Williams wants to be traded. Doesn't want to play right tackle, but can't play left tackle anymore. If you could convince him to play right tackle, I still don't know if that works under the cap. It probably doesn't. Personally, I'm a big Colton McKivitz fan, and I've talked to Trent Williams about him, and Trent's like, he's amazed by Colton's poise, and Colton's like one of these guys that he's just a good old boy. He's kind of a badass from West Virginia, and he just doesn't get Aaron Donald, Von Miller. It's like he's just one of those guys. He's like a hunter. He's a fisherman. He's fearless. The moment will never be too big for him. He's just calm. But is he good enough to play right tackle? I don't know. And then if Feliciano was brought in to start, is Burford athletic enough to kick out to right tackle? I don't know that either. I do know that it's a really good tackle draft. I think, Paris Johnson, Skoronski, Broderick Jones, Anton Harrison. I think maybe Darnell Wright. I think maybe 4 or 5 going round 1. I know the Niners have talked to Blake Freeland from BYU, Jalen Duncan from Maryland. Those guys are probably going to be middle of round 2. I mean, that's what I'm talking about. Like, if by chance you really loved Blake Freeland or Jalen Duncan or Dawan Jones, who's a house for Ohio State, and you want to use some draft capital and try to move up into the second round, that's the position I could see them trading up for. I actually kind of like some guys further down the list. I like Alex Palszewski for Illinois, who finished his college career, didn't allow a sack all year in the Big Ten, went like 270 consecutive snaps in pass protection without allowing a sack to finish his career. Has played right guard and right tackle, has a wrestling background, smart kid, really devoted. Doesn't have awesome feet. That's why he's going to be there probably in the 5th or 6th round. But I like him. I like the guy from Old Dominion, Nick Saldiveri. And then there's the rarest of transitions is the college guard who can somehow play tackle in the NFL. But this year there is a guy named McClendon Curtis who plays for University of Tennessee, Chattanooga. He's 6'6", he's 324 pounds, but he's got long arms for a tackle. He's got quick feet. And as if you're looking for a developmental tackle who could develop into a Pro Bowl right tackle in like a year or two, McClendon Curtis might be a good round 3, round 4 pick.
And you name all these guys, but Kyle doesn't necessarily like to start a rookie.
He did this year, Burford, but you're right. He doesn't. And nobody really wants to put rookie.
Aaron Banks treatment.
Yeah, I mean, because they're not ready. Because the quickness of the game is just overwhelms them. And also, the other really underrated part about the Niner lineman is that Kyle, if you want to be an offensive lineman for the 49ers, with all of the shifting, all of the motion, all of the formation variation, how rapidly he'll switch from formation and personnel group in the midst of one drive, he asks a lot of his quarterbacks. He asks a lot of his offensive linemen. So have you noticed have you ever seen an interview? There is no interview with an offensive lineman where the guy doesn't sound really, really smart, because you have to be really, really smart to operate as an offensive lineman in this system. So that's a big thing. And there's lots of different ways to figure out if a player's football smart, but I think it's undoubtedly a prerequisite for a Kyle offense. That's why they like veterans, and that's why it's very difficult to see rookies get any playing time at all, which makes the Burford playing time this year spectacular.
That's actually a good point. I never looked at it that way. When the O-line is interviewed. Have a question from No Border Sports. Could Burford's fatigue be from switching from a 2-point to a 3-point stance? If so, with the pick of the guard, Joe Feliciano, could the 49ers be looking to move Spencer over and back to his original position?
Well, he played some right tackle at University of Texas, San Antonio. I asked him about it this year. He said he's real comfortable at tackle. So but the quickness, the speed of which, NFL edge rushers get. I mean, I get the feeling that, you just don't, one whiff and your quarterback's out for the year. You know what I mean? It's a thankless position. You could be great all day. So, it's just like, I can look at him and see that he's got the build to do it and he's had the experience, but doing it for Texas San Antonio, blocking for Sincere McCormick in this 70-80% run scheme that they had is so different than, doing it in Kyle Shanahan's offense where, they're dropping back to pass maybe 35 times. So it's just, we'll see. I can't imagine that Feliciano would have come here without some indication that he was going to start at right guard or at least share that with somebody because he's been a starter. And they just signed Brendel back, and Brendel was a Pro Bowl alternate. So he's not starting at center. So maybe he's the Brunskill who's going to share time with Burford. But maybe Burford's graduated to the point where he is, Spencer's really wants it. He really wants it. So it wouldn't surprise me if he did what he needed to do to get that foot quickness so that he would have that value. Because these guys understand the tackles are who make the money on the offensive line. So it's really, if you want to get the big bag, as they say, you gotta be able to play tackle. So I wouldn't be surprised if he said, "Hey, I can do this," and maybe a McKivitz Burford draft pick, day 3 draft pick or day 2 draft pick, combination fights it out in camp for that right tackle spot with Feliciano at right guard.
So, what were your thoughts of Mike McGlinchey?
Great guy. I love talking to him. He's a really smart guy, really great teammate. Mike McGlinchey had one issue, and Niner fans really 2 issues. One was social media, where he would get his body out of position, he would have to lunge, and then he could get himself contorted by the defensive end, and all of a sudden now McGlinchey looks like he's going flying because he was going flying, and everybody sees it and it's like, oh my God, McGlinchey's out over his skis and he's the weakness to our team and blah, 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 blah. That was a bunch of garbage. In reality, McGlinchey has one weakness. He doesn't kick out like a Lane Johnson in pass pro. He doesn't have that elite quickness to get outside. So what he has to do is he has to really gear up for it. And then that means he's lunging. And that means if he's hit with the counter club, like you saw from Parsons, he's just flying out of there because he's not really anchored because he's using all of his energy to get out there because he lacks a little bit of speed to kick out. That one problem breaks down his entire game against the pass. So he knows he's got to get to the edge. He knows he can't give up the edge to these awesome guys. So he kicks out. And then what happens is the guys who are technicians club him with the inside and then knife back inside. And it's just beeline to the quarterback. So he's given up some really bad pressures. His pass protection is inconsistent, but he's one of the better NFL right tackle run blockers. He's a technician. He understands angles. He gets off the ball. He's got good hand placement. Several of the things that scouts would grade him on, he gets graded very highly. I was not surprised at all that he secured the big contract. I thought it was going to be from Chicago, but it's in Denver. But yeah, he's a well above average NFL right tackle who got paid huge because there's no good offensive lineman in this league. And I don't blame the Niners for letting him go because if McGlinchey's a 7, McKivitz is a 5. And the difference in the salary is enormous. So the salary couldn't be justified. And I wish him well. I think he's a great guy. I'm a little surprised he went to Denver because he's a Philly guy, a New Jersey guy. I thought he was going back closer to Philly and New Jersey, but great dude. Absolute great dude.
So of all the players that you've spoken to, who's your favorite one to talk to?
Wow. I like a lot of them. Drake Jackson's great just because he's just a young guy. I have 4 kids. I've got a 22-year-old daughter. I have a 21-year-old son. who goes to Cal Poly, and it's like I almost feel like I'm talking to my own son, when I'm talking to Drake, because he's just such a young guy, but he's just a really cool, down to earth guy, and we've had some phenomenal conversations. Aaron Banks is terrific. He's really interesting guy. As I said, the O linemen are really always pretty good. And then Dre Greenlaw is really good. Sometimes these guys who really exude the great violence in the game are a little sheepish about talking about it. And then sometimes I'll just go up to a guy and be like, "Hey, Dre, you just love to hit, don't you? And he'll get this smile and he'll be like, yeah, I love to hit. I love, and then and then he'll describe his favorite hitters in the league. And, those three guys, and Brock was also great too, but Dre Greenlaw, Robbie Gold's good. But yeah, Greenlaw, Banks, and Drake Jackson, and Ray McLeod too. Ray McLeod, is the kind of guy, he plays fearless, and he's just a real simple guy, and he likes what he likes. He's like, I'm like, what do you do, when you have free time? And he's like, man, Krug, I got my girl, I got my little boy. I like to listen to, some music and chill out, watch movies. I really like Ray. He's really down to earth.
Have you ever spoken to George Kittle?
Yes.
How did we know you were going to ask that, Jess?
Kittle's great.
I was waiting for it.
Yeah.
I said to Kittle, I say, do you really wear those cheap sunglasses that you're always talking about? And yeah. No, but George is great. I'll give you a George story. So I'm coming back from vacation a couple years ago, and I got my kid. He's playing high school football, and he's got his buddy, and I just happened to have them with me, and I had to stop by camp and get some interview done. So I had to bring these guys with me, and they're high school football players and they're varsity players. So they really look up to these guys. So I mentioned to the PR guys, I'm like, I got my son and his friend with me today. And they're like, well, we're very serious here. It's very professional. And these guys cannot be here. And, it's like the world's worst thing. And I'm like, hey, no sweat. I'll keep them off to the side, and they're just hanging with me. I just didn't want to put them in the car. It's 100 degrees. So they're off to the side, and Kittle's coming out for practice. And, he's got he could walk straight, or he could walk over by them and go through this other entrance. And it was a little bit out of his way, but he sees that they had the Northgate football shirt on. He sees these guys are high school football players. He knows that he was that high school football player who looked up to these guys. He has the presence of mind to know who he is in the world and what he means to them right now. And he takes the time, didn't have to ask him, said nothing, didn't say a word. Instead of walking right in, he walks over by them, fist pounded both of them. How you guys doing? Has your season started? How's your camp going? Hey, good luck this year, guys. It was great to see you guys. Thanks for coming out here. Go Niners. Goes to camp. Freaking 2 minutes, but the impact that he made on these guys was like, dude, we talked to George Kittle. And, it was like, Dad, that was the greatest day ever. And Kittle's so freaking cool, Dad. And I'm like, you know what? He ain't playing. I mean, that's what he's like. That's who he is. And that's what I love about Kittle, is that he's just a genuine good dude who likes people, understands he's a football player, was that high school kid who dreamt of being an NFL player, wants to give back. Come on. That's what it's all about, right?
Love it.
That's how I reacted when I met him. I got goosebumps. I almost cried. Oh my goodness.
He's a simple guy, man. He loves to lift. He loves to play. He loves his tight end, his deal that he does in Nashville.
Mm-hmm.
This is, I don't know how you guys feel, but for me, I said Jimmy was a tone setter. This guy's a tone setter. You feel his presence. You feel his swagger. When he's out there, you feel the energy that he brings. That's those guys, if you could bottle that up and sell it, man, it'd be worth tons.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. We've made that point on this show during the season, that on the offense, he's the tone setter out there. And so get him involved, set that tone, and things will go a lot better for us.
Yeah. Attitude adjuster.
No doubt. Look how good he was with Brock too. And it was really hard for George because George is a loyal friend and he's Jimmy's good friend. But it was undeniable as the season went on that Brock Purdy hits the tight end in stride, in the soft spot in the zone, does it with regularity. If Kittle plays with Purdy for another couple years, Kittle could go to the Hall of Fame. I mean, Brock Purdy could help usher George to the Hall of Fame. They're that meant for each other right now as far as accuracy and the way Purdy looks for the tight end and the way Kittle. Look at what Kittle did as a receiver just under Brock.
Yeah.
It was incredible to watch.
Rebirth of a season, honestly, because I felt like before Purdy was there, like, what's going on? Why isn't George Kittle touching the ball as much?
George.
And I mean, it was every week. And then here comes Brock Purdy. It's like, oh, I don't know. It's just a natural thing. Young quarterbacks look for the tight end. It's just what they do.
They're right there in the middle of the field. It's safe. It's easy. It's and I was looking at some of the Iowa State film. Brock was thrown to a guy named Charlie Kohler, and he's kind of relatively stiff tight end, but man, he made Charlie Kohler look really, really good, And it makes me kind of think that the Niners are going to invest in another tight end of significance in this draft. Because there's so many really good ones, and their room is like George is a 1, but I think Dwelly and Werner and I think these guys are more like 3s. So I think they're that second tight end that could be a 1 in the future. I think this is the draft for that piece.
I think I've said during the season every episode that good things happen when the ball's in George Kittle's hands.
I think I might have heard that a few times. Yeah.
It's true.
We hear that in our sleep, I think. Conditioned.
What was I going to ask?
I have a question.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead, Becca.
Larry, do you know anything about Robbie's contract? Where we stand with Robbie Gould? Because I thought he was walking. Then it seemed like we're in negotiation. We're trying to bring him back. Do you know where that stands or what's going on there?
Dispel the rumors. He said he wanted to go home. What's the deal?
I do know from talking to Matt Barrows in a live stream last week, Matt said that he knew that this year Robbie actually had his family out here with him. So it's not like he's separated from his family. And as somebody who has 4 kids, man, I get it. I get that part of it. And I would want to be closer to my family too. But here's the one thing. It's not, to me, it's like, and maybe this is just me, but like, if I'm home, I'm home. If I'm not home, I'm not home. Am I closer to my kids if I'm in LA than if I'm in Chicago, than if I'm in New York, if I'm not home? I mean, I don't know. I would say my kids wouldn't notice the difference. So I don't know about that, but I'll say this. Robbie's got 3 boys. He told me they're all Bosa and Kittle fans and Brock fans and, Trey fans, and they're not fans of his, which I totally, I was
we
like,
all
wow.
get that, right, as parents?
Yeah, I mean, that's totally easily to picture. But, I think he made 4.5 this year, I think it was 4.8. 4.8, and if they franchised him, it would be 5.4. Right. So, I mean, maybe just give him the extra $600,000 and franchise him, but they obviously opted not to. He said he was done and was going to move on. I don't know if that was a negotiating ploy. If you go back to it, last time he was free, he kind of did the exact same thing. He said, I was moving on. Then they brought him back. I look at it this way. Robbie, if you got to be out of here and you got to be somewhere else, then thanks for your time and good luck to you. And I think I would go for Eddie Pinheiro or, some veteran kicker, not a rookie kicker, a veteran kicker. But you know what? If it's just about a few extra bucks, you know what, Robbie, you've never missed in the playoffs, and all things being equal, I don't really care about anything but the playoffs. And so how about this? You made 4.8, the tag is 5.4. How about we give you 5.2 and change, and we make it a 2-year deal and you come back? That's what I would do. I don't think I would switch gears here for a lot of reasons. I mean, there are very few kickers that are leaders on the team. This guy's one of them. He's a true voice in the room. So you're not just losing your kicker, you actually are losing a veteran voice and a leader, and it's important. And I've got so much belief in the guy. And also we all know that when you have a dependable kicker, it's like having a dependable vehicle. It's like, is it going to start? Wait until you have a
he's the
car
Toyota of the NFL, right?
Exactly. The Honda or Toyota of the NFL. You get rid of the car before it ever breaks down. It's like, you're just like, I did an interview with Robbie at the end of the year. It was one of my favorite interviews that I did all year. And he just seems like a guy who's a big part of their culture. So I was really shocked when he said, I'm done here. I'm going somewhere else. But I'm hoping that I don't have insight as far as I don't have an inside source on this one, but I'm hoping that the fact that he's still out there, that maybe the market hasn't been there for him, and maybe he'll come back on a 2-year deal and they can meet in the middle. I hope that's the case, because you need some continuity in your football team, especially among your leaders, and it'd be nice to retain him.
Yeah, I mean, I thought with his family being there that wasn't going to be as significant, but I thought maybe parents or someone else is maybe calling him back home. Maybe his parents are getting older and he wants to be closer. But
I mean, there's life, right? Yeah, it's like there are situational things that make you want to be in a different spot. But if it's just about a few extra bucks, I say give him a few extra bucks.
I'm with you. The Niners need to pay him.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, but Rebecca, you brought up a good point. Speaking on behalf of the older community, sometimes we know home just feels like home. Where you identify with, and you want to be there. And that plays a big role in your life.
Well, it does. When your people are getting older around you and you're not there, you're missing out on those moments with them that you can't get back. So I don't know if that's part of it, but
the other thing is, other parts of the country, it's more reasonable. Like you could have, in other parts of the country, you might be able to have a house. I think a lot of these guys, I'll do these interviews sometimes after night games, and and I'll be like, hey man, where are you going? And you guys going out? Are you going back to the house? What is your plan right now? He's like, well, and this is not him, but other guys would be like, I live in a hotel across the street. I'm just gonna get a little food and go crack. So that's the reality for some guys. And if that's your reality, and you got 3 kids and a wife and a nice house in some nice suburb of Chicago, and they're telling you stories, and you're sitting there looking at some glorified Hyatt, suite. I don't know. You know what I'm saying?
It's like an apartment with someone.
Yeah, I mean, it's not. There's hotel living's. It's fun maybe if you're young, but he's an 18-year vet. Right. If the guy just wants to be at home, I would understand it. But if like he lives in Chicago and he just wants to leave and then winds up in Kansas City, it's like he's still not at home. You know what I mean? It's like that's the part I don't. It's like either I'm home or I'm not home. So if I couldn't be home, I'd want to win. Here, it seems like he's got a chance to win. I know Shanahan respects the hell out of him, as does Schneider, the special team coach. So I hope he's back. I really do.
As we all do. Yeah.
Yep.
Same. Hopefully.
There's unfinished business. He has to come back.
He does. And no one's more fun to watch warm up. He gives zero about who's on the field. And I live for that every time I go to the games, to watch Robbie warm up and kick in the middle of everybody.
Right.
That's part of the entire
Plus
game.
He broke up the brawl. He broke up the brawl to be when the Niners were giving Maher a lot of grief. He's like, all right, guys, that's good. He kind of pulled everybody back. Yeah, Robbie's a leader. I mean, he's a powerful voice in the room, which is sometimes the kicker is not a powerful voice in the room, but he really is.
Yeah, I definitely hope he's back. Switching gears to the
wait. I gotta pick Larry's brain for a second.
Yeah.
Hey Larry, you mentioned the kicking, sticking on kickers. You wouldn't give the job to a rookie kicker. Let's go sign a veteran. But hold on now. I want to understand why. Because are you a Brock Purdy or a Trey Lance fan at all?
Oh yeah, I like them both.
Yeah, okay. So you would give the job to a rookie quarterback, but not a rookie kicker. No love for the kickers? What's going on here?
Well, no, you know what it is that I've seen, was it the guy Roberto Aguayo? I think the highest drafted kicker just flamed out of the league. The Niners have invested some high picks in kickers in the past, kickers and punters. There's always good ones on the market. There's always veterans out there. It seems like a year-to-year proposition. The most, you would think that rookie kickers as younger athletes wouldn't be as volatile, but a lot of times these guys struggle initially and then figure it out. It's a totally different deal. I mean, I just would say I would prefer a veteran kicker. I'd prefer somebody who, you don't have to wonder if they're a dependable kicker and waste half the season figuring out if they're a dependable kicker. They've got a track record. Certain positions I'd rather go young. Other positions I'd rather have a guy with a track record. Kicker, I think more than almost any position is the spot. I'd rather have a guy with a track record. And I also just really believe that since you can find Brock Purdy in the 7th round, and you can find George Kittle in the 5th round, and you can find DJ Jones in the 6th round, and you can find Raheem Mostert as an undrafted free agent, I'd rather try to devote my picks to those guys and, take one more bite of the apple with a football player and then, kind of pick up a kicker on the fly. I have a great couple workouts and look at some guys and if you see a rookie you think's phenomenal, go with it. But I think it's a mental position. It's almost kind of like the reason I would bet on a veteran golfer to win a major versus somebody who is just were amateur last year, because there's a lot course knowledge in golf means a lot. But like insider knowledge on the nuances of the NFL game and every aspect of it also matter. And I just think that I'd rather not go through that learning lesson with a rookie.
1994, Doug Bryan was a rookie, though.
He was. And
good news
how long
is,
did he
good
last
news is
with the
I don't
Niners?
think
Matt with the
maybe one
stats,
game
man.
I think there was only one game that year that was even needed a field goal, which is I think was the Sunday night game against the Rams. Right? So yeah, it's whatever. So it could be a totally moot point. It's just I feel the same way. I'm more of a veteran kicker guy. So I want somebody to bring back the barefoot. I want the old Tony Franklin barefoot kicker back.
Or the pendulum. How about the Mark Mosley pendulum kick?
Oh, the straight ahead? Yeah.
The straight ahead.
Yeah. Yep. 1982 former NFL MVP Mark Mosley, of course.
There you go. It's good knowledge.
Maddie has a lot of good knowledge.
Matt has all the knowledge.
No chemistry knowledge whatsoever. Football stats, all of it.
I can help you with a little bit of chemistry. You've got all the football.
All
right. Switching gears to the quarterbacks. Who do you like in the quarterback? I know you like the both of them, Brock and Trey, but your honest opinion about Trey coming off the UCL surgery, insert Trey Lance in there. How do you feel about all that?
Well, it's a really unique situation, right? Because you got 3 guys all in different stages of development, all with upside potential. There's no old guy here. They're all the young ascending players. I like that aspect of it first, because I think last year Josh Johnson was more of a figurehead spot. He was an older player. He was local. I just, I think you got to have 3 guys who you can try to win games with that are in the prime of their career. So I like that. They're all in their prime. Brock is clearly has all the nuances down, and what he has, they can't teach. He's got great timing, great touch. But this is all based on what we saw before his arm basically got ripped out, So I don't know what he's going to be this year. So that clouds his situation. Trey, I really think is a phenomenal prospect. And I think there's very little risk that he's going to be great at some point. But watching him throw, so far, he doesn't throw with touch or timing or tempo. Everything's coming out hard. He's kind of one-speeded. So I think he needs a lot of nuanced development in his throwing. And I like Trey's – I think Trey's going to get there. Like what he had, I think what he showed against the Texans was just like high level escapability, explosive pocket presence, movement. He's got a phenomenal arm. He's a great kid. Football's important to him. He's got every attribute you need except experience. I talked to Randy Mueller, former GM of the Saints and Dolphins, and I said, "Where did you have Trey on your board?" He said, "Larry, I didn't even have him on my board." I said, "You didn't have him in any round?" He said, "No." I said, "Why?" He said, "There wasn't enough tape to make a proper evaluation. I couldn't properly evaluate him, so I didn't have him on the board." And I understand now where he's coming from, because he didn't play very much, and he played at such a lower level of competition that he could run over the defense. So he had 1,100 yards rushing, but it wasn't like he made a miss or juked him. He just kind of ran through him and over him. So, I love Trey as a prospect. I think the Niners may have made this decision in a vacuum, in that they said, okay, let's get a prospect that has great traits, and then let's put him through the best process, and that will be how we'll do it. And I think that's what they did. They took a prospect with traits they loved, and they put him through a process where he sat for a year, and they just kind of expected that it would all kind of come together. But it takes far more than that. And he now needs, he needs to learn how to throw with touch and timing and pace and rhythm. And he's very, very raw. And that's what I think people are seeing. I think that's what you're seeing with Shanahan. Now, I didn't like the way Shanahan utilized Trey in the Arizona game. I felt like he ran him 16 times, 7 of which were designed runs. I didn't like that. I didn't see the need for that. But they chose that route, and I think that they keep referring to him as a dual quarterback, which makes me nervous, because it's like, why can't he just run what Jimmy ran and what Brock runs, and then we'll live with the differences? I don't want to see designed runs where he drops back and is just quarterback power, picking and sliding and looking for a hole. So in that Arizona game, and I don't quote stats that much, but I'm going to quote you this one. Arizona game, 16 runs. 9 of them were scrambles. 7 of them were designed runs. On the 9 scrambles, he averaged 13 or 11 yards a carry and took a hit on 3 of them. On the designed runs, he averaged 3.2 yards per run and took a hit on all of them.
Wow.
So I don't want to see any more designed runs for this quarterback who's athletic, but he's not Lamar. He's not Steve Young. He's not Michael Vick. He's not going to run to the edges. He's not. I don't want to hear him referred to as a dual threat. He's a quarterback, and coach him up, and he needs to work on his mechanics and get more accurate. But this idea that you're just going to get him, I realize that the read option has to be a big part of what he does, and that's fine. And you can have some QB keepers, that's fine. But I mean, to me, what I saw this year from the Niners in that Atlanta game from Marcus Mariota, that's how I want to use Trey. I want to use him as a passer, and then in short yardage, if you want to utilize him on some QB keepers to run a yard, to keep the offense on the field as a continuity piece, you want to use him on short runs out of the read option. I'm cool with that. But these design quarterback runs where he's picking and sliding like he's Marcus Allen or he's Larry Zonka and he's got no lead blockers. I mean, what the hell? That is not going to work. It's never going to, even if it works, it can't, it's not sustainable. I've talked to Steve Young about this. He said, hey, you know what, Larry, I think it's once he learns more that they'll sprinkle that in a lot less. But we both agreed the way he was utilized as a runner was not sustainable. So, there's a lot. I think Shanahan's learning how to utilize him. I think they're learning what they have. I think he's learning that there's a lot of nuances to playing this position. It's going to still take time. I don't think he's ready to play right now. I think it's going to take a little bit of time. But I am also very confident that some point Trey Lance is going to be a very, very good NFL quarterback because he's got it here, he's got it here, he's got it here. He's got what you're looking for, but it's not. It has to be. It's like right now, it's all ingredients on a counter. It has to be mixed together, and
Someone's got to bake the cake.
somebody's got to cook it. Yeah, and Shanahan has proven to me that his offense works. That he's an awesome play caller, play sequencer. But he's not proven yet that he can take a quarterback through the various stages and get him to Pro Bowl caliber. I haven't seen it yet. And in some ways, I think Kyle, by drafting Trey, called his own bluff. And now we're going to find out, what level of a quarterback kind of guru Shanahan is, because there's clear development that's needed here. And he's the guy who's in charge of that development plan.
So I was just going to say, Jess, can we pull up that comment and get Larry's hot take on the comment about Kyle? I mean, I think we already just sort of heard it, and I saw Ty make a face too.
Which one?
Whose comment?
I didn't even see it.
Kyle has never developed a quarterback.
Okay.
Oh, from Terradome.
That's true.
Terradome is great.
Terradome, what up, homie?
I mean, people will say RG3, but that was pretty short-lived.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's, Mike Shanahan, people will say that about the Shanahans. I thought if you asked Steve Young would counter that and say that Mike Shanahan had a huge hand in his development, and that Shanahan absolutely helped develop him. I think Kirk Cousins would probably push back on that and say that Shanahan, had a hand in developing him. But yeah, as far as Kyle, they really haven't. They've gone the veteran route. They've picked some guys. Didn't work with Hoyer. Beathard wasn't much. They were 9-29 with quarterbacks not named Garoppolo until Purdy showed up. So, in a lot of ways, I get the feeling that Kyle Shanahan understands that Brock Purdy is, in some ways, perfect for his scheme. So I kind of wonder how Shanahan views the quarterback room, period. Does he view Brock? If you're asking me to guess, I would say he views Brock and then Trey and Sam Darnold, like that Brock's above them. Other people make it seem like it's just they're all at the same point. I don't, that's just a guess. I don't have sources, but my guess is that Kyle sees Brock as on a different level than those guys right now.
You know what, too? It helps to have Brian Greasy on board. I think he's played a great role in developing the quarterback.
I think he's really good for them on and off the field, because he did the job, and he can kind of speak to the life, and how you handle. There's a lot of demands, and these guys, they're getting tugged in every different direction. And sometimes if you're just a nice guy, it's hard to kind of put up those walls that you need to put up to make sure that you get your things done. So I think a guy like Greasy is probably good at letting these guys know how to live the life and balance everything. It's a big part of it.
Last one for me. Your 49ers Mount Rushmore.
Well, it's got to have Joe. I think it's got to have Bill. So I know that sounds crazy, but I would say Joe and Bill and Ronnie and Jerry.
Okay.
Can't go wrong with that.
Yeah.
All right. So
there's an awful lot of great players, man. T.O.'s going, what the heck?
Right.
Speaking of which, let's play a little game of start, bench, cut. All right. Running backs edition. Who would you start? Who would you bench? And who would you cut out of Roger Craig, Ricky Waters, and Garrison Hurst?
I got to start Roger. Roger belongs in the Hall of Fame.
Yes.
I'm trying hard. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but I'm pushing hard for this.
Mm-hmm.
I talked about it on a 49er pregame show on KMBR a few years ago. Guy took it and ran with it. Went and interviewed everybody. We're pushing. Roger, we're trying, brother. I want.
He deserves
if
it.
Bill were alive,
It'd be done.
Bill would be making it his life's work to get Roger in that Hall of Fame.
Mm-hmm.
Bill would have been able to get Roger in just because Bill carried that much clout. So Roger for sure is the Hall of Famer. He's got to be in there. It's Ricky, Roger, and Garrison. You're not
first.
going Gore.
Yep.
Ricky, Roger, and Garrison. What I'm playing one, I'm cutting one, and I'm doing what to one?
Benching one. So
I guess
Rodgers
I'd have to
starter.
bench Ricky Waters because he left the Niners for the Eagles, but he's a friend of mine, and I really like Ricky. He's a great guy, but I'll bench Ricky because
the friendship
Ricky,
role.
You walked away from the 94 Niners. You know, I mean, it's like some guy sitting down at Google saying, "I'm out of here." You know, I got a different startup I'm going to.
I'm gonna go work for a Linux company.
So you're cutting Garrison?
And Garrison Hurst was really special. Garrison Hurst played his entire career with no ACL. Remember they discovered at the combine when he came out that he was playing without an ACL, and the guy was incredible. So he had some unfortunate comments that made him kind of persona non grata with a lot of the forward-thinking people of Northern California. But that aside,
just on the field, on the field, yeah,
on the field, yeah. I guess I would start Roger, bench Ricky, and what's the other one?
You would cut Garrison
and cut Garrison, yeah.
Okay.
Wow.
I have one question about that. If we're going to talk Hall of Fame, can we get George Seifert in before he passes? Because he's getting up there. He does have 2 Super Bowls. Tom Flores is in. George Seifert should be in, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's ridiculous. I heard somebody saying, well, was Eli Manning going to be – how about Plunkett? You know, why don't we talk about Plunkett before we get to Eli Manning? And, yeah, I mean, George has 2 Super Bowls. George is one of the all-time great defensive backfield coaches. Ask Pete Carroll.
Yep.
Ask,
Ronnie Lott.
Great. Yeah, and if you talk about great defensive backfield coaches, Bill Belichick, Bud Carson, definitely George Seifert, Ray Rhodes, and these guys were absolutely at the, I think what hurts Seifert is the 1-15 season in Carolina. That
which was the 2001 year, which is like, just a weird year overall as it stands anyway, because they shut down for a week. So,
and I love George at the time, but I didn't like what George. To me, when I watched the Montana doc, come on,
they didn't do any
George.
favors for him in that.
Come on,
not
George.
at all.
You told Joe Montana, George, that he had to be out of the locker room because he was a distraction while he was on the team. Joe freaking Montana. I mean, how bad karma is that? Supposedly this guy used to blow air through lifesavers and all this stuff. You think that's bad karma? You told Joe Montana to get out of your locker room. I think that's worse karma.
Yeah.
Blow on that lifesaver. Ridiculous. I don't want to step on the logo. You told Joe Montana to beat it.
You told them to hit the bricks. They tried to trade him to the Cardinals.
Come on.
Yeah.
Not only did they want to trade him, they wanted to get him killed.
Yeah. And then he gives him that one game against Detroit at the end of the year. And he won that game and he still didn't bring him off the bench in the playoffs. George, that Montana doc, I can see why Montana's still bitter. I'm bitter now.
Yeah. As am I.
And it's hard to get bitter at a guy who's basically prior to this been known for fishing in Morro Bay off of a boat that Eddie bought him. You know what I mean? It's like he's such a likable guy, but come on, George.
All right. Anybody else?
Nah,
all right.
We're good.
Larry Krueger, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Larry.
Larry, is a
We
pleasure.
appreciate it. It was great.
Guys, I think we're on the verge of what's going to be a very good period in Niner football. If I could just finish with this last point.
Yes. Go ahead.
People talk about what is the greatest run the Niners have ever had. And to me, it was late 80s, early 90s. well after they had established the dynasty. And it really was on the heels of 2 drafts. 85, they got Rice. 86, they got depth. Well,
Haley and Taylor.
Look at the last 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
2 years ago, they got Trey. This year, they got Brock and unbelievable depth. The Niners had 14 rookies on their roster this year or on the practice squad. Any football person will tell you the biggest improvement that a football player will make in his career comes from year 1 to year 2. And the 49ers have right around 16 or 17 guys who are all in that kind of the arrows pointing straight up.
Yep.
And that's a huge number. And that means that despite the fact that they're getting better as a football team, I expect several of their rookies that were basically non-factors to really step forward this next year. I think 3 years from now, 2 years from now, maybe we're going to look back at this 2022 draft class of Lynch and say that was his 86 draft. I expect the Niners to have an incredible run here where they win at least 2 of the next 5 or 6 Super Bowls. And I think they're going to be a dominant force in the NFC. I really do. I think this isn't the good old days, but it's about to be the good old days. So I'm really, really encouraged. And anytime you guys want me back, I'd love to come back.
Yeah, definitely. I just got
let's do it.
goosebumps with all that.
I know. I'm like, oh, I can't.
I just needed that affirmation because I've been feeling that way.
When's
for
the
a
schedule
bit.
coming out?
Yeah,
Time,
right.
you know?
Marcelino McCrary Ball, player.
Yep.
Kalia
Yes.
Davis, player.
Player.
Tay Martin, player.
Tay
Nick
Martin.
Sickell, player. Drake Jackson, player.
Yep.
Quantrez Knight, player.
Yeah,
Sammy
that's what I wanna
Womack,
see.
player. I mean, not to mention JP Mason. I think he's pretty good. He reminds me of kind of maybe a poor man's Marshawn Lynch. There's a lot of good young players on this football team. They all get a lot better from year 1 to year 2. The Niners, it's going to dawn on us, I would say, somewhere in the middle of preseason, where we're going to sit there and go, dang, this team is stacked.
Look
And that's
how
if they have a
good
marginal
we are.
draft. If they have a good
Loaded.
draft, they're going to be really loaded. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be a fun year.
Yes, it is. And Larry, we'd love to have you on down the road.
Anytime.
All right,
Thanks
awesome.
for having me on.
Thanks, Larry.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you. Thanks
Take
for
care.
joining.
All right.
Right.
Now he's got me
Krueger.
hyped. I'm like,
Yeah,
I want to
I'm
go.
like,
I want to go
woo.
play for Chris Kachurik now. Like, let's go.
let's
Go.
go. Let's do it.
I mean, my hip will fall right out of socket, but like, it's totally cool. Like, I don't care. I'll be on IR. I'll be like, let's go team. Like, totally fine. Right.
Matt, I
Totally
can't walk
fine.
down the stairs without my ankle popping and cracking.
Old people problem.
But I'm there.
you know?
I'm ready. Put me in.
Right.
coach.
Same deal.
Wow, that was
It's
cool.
it's also a really good thing that he mentioned that he thinks there's another good run in Niners history coming up, right? Because he mentioned from the late 80s to the early 90s. Speaking of good runs, for the last 8 years, IE Sports Radio has been bringing you amazing content, ranging from interviewing legendary athletes to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all the major sports cities around the country. Now, all the while, it's been by the fans and for the fans, and with your help, can take the next step. Go to Patreon. The link is there. 5 different tiers at iesportsradio.com. The first one is just $5 a month. That one gets shout-outs on all the shows, and the higher tiers include IE Sports Radio merchandise and access to Podcaster U. Even get a chance to be featured on the flagship show, The Defining Moment. Another segment there. So thank you all very much for making IE Sports Radio your direct feed for all the sports. Again, that's iesportsradio.com. And Jess, what should the people be doing?
Like and subscribe to our show, East Coast Red and Gold, and also iesportsradio.com/East Coast Red and Gold. Awesome. Larry Krueger's great.
Yes, he is.
Larry was terrific.
Yeah, he definitely was. What's up to everybody on the chat? Terradome, Ted Talks Ball,
Hey, you
Kelly
guys are
Young,
awesome.
Brian Culp, Troy Knoll, Krueger's 9,000 sub. Rob
It's
D.
amazing.
Who else we got here? David McNiner. No Border Sports. What's up, everybody? Thanks for your support today. All right, guys. So, new signing that just happened as we're, talking to Larry. What do you guys think, Ty?
Yeah, as Larry mentioned when he was talking about it, Chris Kasarik recognizes these guys he likes. Guys with a high motor, speed that he can work with. And, he doesn't have to play every down. He could just come in on some rush downs, put him at the end and say, hey, son, go get the quarterback. That's all you got to do. Just go get the quarterback and let him do that. It's one of our typical low-key signings that we've done the past few seasons that help keep this line in rotation to keep them going. So I'm on board. I like it.
Becca, what do you think?
I would agree. And one of the things Larry mentioned was depth. And, we need a lot of depth. Some years we struggle with injuries. Some other years it's about rotation, keeping people fresh. Yeah. I trust the front office with this organization right now to make the best signing and put the right people in the right places. I mean, look at the magic that they've done. And Larry mentioned it with all of the rookies we have and how we've been able to develop people. So I'm on board with whoever they bring in.
Yeah, I am too. I like this signing. We're still playing chess, not checkers.
Yeah.
And
sure.
yeah, we may not be signing every huge name, but
big name, right? We don't
right.
have to.
We don't have to. Exactly.
We create them here.
Exactly. And like I said earlier, having Chris Kasarik, that's really all you need. So, Niner fans, get behind that. I know everyone wants Ngakwe and stuff like that, but sometimes that doesn't happen. Right. I mean, there's obviously that issue with it's called the cap.
Money.
Right.
Yes. So right tackle, we extended Colt McKivitz. McGlinchey obviously went to Denver. What do you guys think of that position? Maddie, go ahead.
Pull the lottery ticket in the draft and see what you get. Right? Like at the end of the day, you've got 11 picks. And if the hot ticket in this draft, which seems to be offensive tackle and corner, start pulling them, right? Just start pulling tabs and finding which one you get. Somebody's going to fall in that third round, fourth round, fifth round that you wouldn't expect to be there. They can probably take advantage of the red and gold redshirt year or whatever the hell they call it. There's got to be some sort of program for that. Like I don't know if it's maybe it's their red and gold prep year. I'm not really sure how that works, but you've got some guys that are already graduates of that. Aaron Banks being a prime example, right? So I think you're going to find somebody in there. And then if you don't, somebody's going to end up on the line. Like there's so many multiple waves of free agency, guys. Like we haven't even gotten to the first rest stop of free agency yet, to be quite honest.
It just started.
With you. It's just started. And it's not going to stop, really, because you're going to have things that happen based off of movement, like this Elijah Moore trade, right? Elijah Moore getting traded to the Browns from the Jets. Well, what the hell does that matter, right? Well, what it does is it gives the Jets a second-round pick. Well, that gives them 2 second-round picks, actually. Gosh, I bet they trade one. I don't know what for, right? But when they do that, that's going to free up a couple of things. Then I would be willing to bet afterwards the Jets then sign OBJ. What does that have to do with the 49ers? Well, somebody else is going to get cut, right? Somebody's going to get Corey Davis has to go somewhere. He's going to get schlanged from the Jets, or traded for a 7th round conditioner, those you bring guys in. It's kind of like that. It's like that meme where somebody pours the water out and then pours it back in and then it comes back in. It's the same deal. Like you're getting a new player and then you're cutting somebody, so the market is constantly getting replenished with players. There are people that are on that list that we aren't even thinking of, right? Did anybody think they were getting the kid from Atlanta? No, I didn't see him on a single watch list before any of this free agency started. Yeah, some of the stuff with Carolina makes total sense, especially with the Steve Wilkes connection. But like some of the stuff is going to be totally different. So we're going to see who's going to break loose, who's going to fit under the cap. There's still a lot of movement left on the cap to do. Like as soon as Nick Bosa's deal gets done, his cap number drops to $1 million. That's going to free up somewhere in the vicinity of $15 to $16 million. I don't know what they're going to do with that, right? Christian McCaffrey's still got to get a deal redone because his cap hits like $12 million this year. I can't imagine that's going to be $12 million this year. So there's some more money to move around. They're only working with about $6 million right now. There's still a lot of stuff left and a lot of flexibility that they have depending on who hits the market. You're going to have people hitting the market up into the draft. You're going to have people hitting the market after the draft. Then there's going to be a little lull. And then after June 1st, you're going to have a whole wave of other people hitting the market, right? A total secondary wave, that kind of the department the Rams were shopping in over the last few years, right? Those guys that, they hit the street and, they picked them up. Almost Brooklyn Netty, if you're paying attention to basketball a little bit. Oh, somebody was on the street. We got to pick him up. It's a star, right? Kind of the same deal. Tampa was doing the same thing when Brady was there. They're just picking people up off the wire. So you're going to see that for quite a bit. And I think that's just going to keep on happening.
Ty, what do you think?
What was the question? You went off the tire. I don't even remember what the question was.
It was so long ago.
I asked about right tackle.
Right tackle.
Oh, okay. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Larry said stuff that we've all been talking about.
Way to go, Ty.
That's my guy.
Shit.
You can't have me go first on these things. You can't. It doesn't. I'm not a leadoff. I'm not a leadoff hitter. Like
I actually had to remember hitter. What I asked. I'm like, wait a minute, let me go back.
I was like, I hope Jess remembers.
I'm like a buffet guy. Like you guys put it out there, I'll clean it up, and then we'll move on to the next topic. Okay?
I'm like,
fine.
Oh crap.
I'm an RBI guy. Yeah, you don't want me on. I'm clogging up the bases. It's not good.
Right tackle.
Yeah, go ahead.
Larry discussed stuff that we ourselves discussed. The possibility of McKivitz coming in, holding that down, possibility of Spencer Burford, who played the position in college, kicking out and possibly competing for that position as well. Then, as we've all mentioned, it's a tackle-rich draft, so we'll definitely draft someone and bet draft one who's played tackle and guard at some point within his college career, because that's just what we do. We sign guys with that flexibility in them, so just in case we need to put him in there, he has familiarity with playing either position. So we're in a good spot. I said this, I think it was just on last week's show. As much as we praise Coach Chris, we got to praise Coach Forrester as well, because he does a great job with the offensive line. Everybody panicked last year. What we were doing, left guard, right guard, center, and they held it down. Right now, we just have one position to worry about, and I'm pretty sure he will get it figured out. So I'm okay where we sit at right tackle for right now.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we all knew that Mike McGlinchey was going to move on. And I just, but I'm with you with that, like Chris Forrester. I mean, he'll get the job done just like Chris Kasarik does. So I'm not really worried about it. I think my only worry is as far as the quarterback position. And it's not really a worry. It's just like, because you want to know like who's going to start.
Mm-hmm.
Not that Kyle has to say who's going to be the quarterback, but you just want to know like who's just going to be under center because of Brock's injury. And, is he going to be back? It doesn't have to be named. Let me put that out
Kyle
there.
doesn't know who's going to be here on Sunday. So
That's right.
You
He doesn't even know if we'll be alive on Sunday. That's right. But yeah, so that's a bigger worry for me. But yeah, I mean, right tackle, I think we'll be cool. I think we'll be good with it.
I think Larry said it best too, is, the coaches know what they need and go look for that. And if you already know Mike McGlinchey is walking, you're letting him walk, you're already scanning the availability of what's going to be out there in free agency or the draft and looking for that guy. Or you already know you have a homegrown Colt McKivitz who's going to develop and step into that role, and maybe you bring in someone else for competition or backup. But I think that the team's planned for that already, knowing McGlinchey's was gone after this year.
I think, and you know what too, like, call me crazy, but I know David McNiner said trade up and get a right tackle. I think we trade up and get a tight end.
I think we're definitely targeting a tight end.
I think at this point, given what happened in the NFC Championship game, I think we need, another tight end other than George Kittle, with
Who's
the whole
blocked well.
Right, exactly.
Saying, there's a really good tight end from Iowa again this year.
What? Iowa? Did you
Iowa? Really? Another good tight end?
Yeah, I feel
turn
like
them out. Tight
feel
end.
like Sam Laporta is ranked around 50th, right? Like, that's a guy that maybe he drops into the third round, right? 50, or maybe you can swing a trade up by dropping off a 6 for somebody, and adding to that. Like, that's something. I'm also going to be real interested to see who they decide to draft for a developmental quarterback, because they're going to draft a quarterback. That's that's an every year thing now.
Yeah.
I think you pick your quarterback every year, like you do a trifecta for the Kentucky Derby, right? Same deal. You either hit it or you don't.
I don't know. Have you ever tried to go to the Kentucky Derby and place a bet?
No, I would never go there to place a bet. I would go to one of the.
That's actually on my bucket list.
One of the
Just
offshores
the only
or
way
whatever.
to do it is be in a club seat. Let me tell you, the infield is an absolute show.
I hear it's like Woodstock '99, so I don't want any.
Wow.
We went and it was like, oh wow, just wow. I can tell you stories when we're done, but I will never go again unless I'm sitting in a club.
I've heard stories about the Preakness as well, especially if there's a Triple Crown. If there's a horse going for the Triple Crown, like, forget it. Like,
and everyone's dressed all pretty too, and you're all in this mucky, muddy now mosh pit in the middle.
And is it really mud though? We don't know. It's some sort of liquidy brown thing.
I mean,
we're
you've got
not sure.
clothes on, and it's a muddy mosh pit. Let me just set the tone.
Right.
That's good to know.
I could see that. I could see multiple tight ends, right? They got 11 picks. They decided to draft 11 guys. Like, unless they trade a few for next year because somebody falls in love with somebody else. I mean, they've already got another 4 comp picks, maybe 5 or 6, depending on if they have coaches leave.
Yeah.
So they've already got more picks, and they've got a first rounder next year, guys. 2024, the return. Return of the Mac could play in the background when the first rounder comes back, right?
Yeah, but we're picking 32, so
understand, but it's still a first rounder. 32, 64, right?
True.
I'm willing to go over that, See, I knew. Yeah, I knew.
You knew it was coming.
Yeah.
You just
she had
to
her dance on. Right. That's really the theme song for the 2024 number one pick is really what it boils on. Like we can actually pay attention to the first day of the draft again. Like for the first time in a couple years. It's really
Just don't lie to me, that's all.
So real quick, Larry had said, our biggest loss was Jimmy Ward. Do you guys agree?
I think Ty should answer because he made the biggest face when Larry said that.
Go ahead, Ty.
Yeah.
Yeah, I disagree with that one, and I didn't want to get into a debate with him. But
Ty was like,
So do tell. Go ahead.
Do tell, Ty.
Yeah.
Your eyes.
Well, he just said he's a tone setter. It's like, well, he got plenty of those. I mean, it's not like he was the only tone setter.
If Ty could come through the computer screen, I think he would have.
Like, come on. He didn't make that big of an impact. I'm sorry. That's just me. That's just me. Who's our biggest loss though? Who's our biggest loss? I don't know. I don't think we have a big loss because of all the guys that we have replaced them with. First of all, we've only lost 3 starters. Like we're returning 19 of the 22 starters thus far.
Yep. Per Eric Branch. Yep.
And it's not like there was some sort of like they upgraded. Like they didn't.
Yeah.
I don't. Yeah, they definitely upgraded the defensive side of the ball.
And like two of the starters were the interchangeable position of nickel corner and third linebacker. So when you look at that, it's like, we really only lost 2 starters. So yeah, I don't think anyone was a major loss. It wasn't like, we lost a Bosa or somebody.
Right. Yeah. I think they, in their own little way, it was, some type of like, as far as depth goes, I mean, I don't, I'll say Emmanuel Mosley. I know he was hurt, but I think that
E-Man, I would go. I'm sorry. Let me backtrack. Let me reel it back. I would say E-Man for sure, because he was my dog, and I wished he would come back on some type of deal where we could have, finagled him for a year and then signed him for a long-term contract next year. I think just him and Ward on the other end was just going to be bookend corners for years to come.
Yeah.
So I think that's the biggest loss.
Yeah,
Jimmy Ward,
agree with that.
By the way, the Jimmy Ward thing saved basically swapping him out for Isaiah Oliver, which is really what they did. Cap hit this year. Jimmy Ward for the Texans is $4.9 million. Isaiah Oliver is 1.7 for the 49ers.
Yep.
So that's
you save some big time money there.
Yeah,
it's math, baby.
I think we saved a lot of money. I just think Jimmy's kind of a fan, love him or hate him guy. He's just been around so long that everybody's comfortable with Jimmy and knows Jimmy. I don't think Jimmy is a huge loss for us, other than personality wise. I think a lot of people, do like Jimmy. But otherwise, I would agree, Ty, when he said he was a tone setter. I was like, but your face was like, I was like, oh, Ty wants to say something so hard.
You should have, Ty.
But yeah, I think, there are definitely people who can do Jimmy's job and do it equally as well. If we didn't think so, we wouldn't have let him go. And that's just how I feel about this management that we have in place right now. If they believed in Jimmy and they thought he was the best guy for the job, they would have found a way to keep Jimmy. If they didn't think that, or they thought there was someone else out there of equal caliber or better, they wouldn't have let him go. So here we are. And here we trust the plan, right, Jess? The Shanna plan?
Trust the Shanna plan. That's right. And for those of you who just joined and are listening, we're talking about Jimmy Ward.
Yes.
Not James. Jimmy
Yes.
Ward.
Yeah, you better make that.
J.I.
You better make that thing.
Yeah,
Jimmy has.
JIMMI.
Yeah, JG has signed his deal with the Raiders and is now there.
He sold his soul to the devil and has sex guaranteed forever. I saw.
I
I'm
saw that.
telling you,
know what? My boss
yeah.
sent me that article, and I'm like, wow, this is
You know what's
crazy.
funny? That's like the
Sexual.
most non-story ever because after what we've seen with Jimmy over the last few years, I think that was already there. I don't think it
I
had
was
to be
about to
there.
say the
I think it
exact
was anywhere.
same thing.
He's prancing
That offer
with
has
porn
been there.
stars
Yep.
in public.
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
Jimmy's giving.
Go back to the Warriors game last year and good day. That's all I
Yep.
have for you.
Exactly.
There is
He had a
not.
good day that day.
That was,
He had a great day at lunch with his girl of the day.
Yeah, no, yep.
good for
Yep.
him. Live the life,
I know.
my
I was
friend.
like, woohoo! One for the thick girls.
Custom tailored suit to boot.
Body positivity, baby. ECRG.
There you go.
Yep. Last one for me, guys. Who's your favorite free agent signing so far? Becca, go.
Well, I guess I have to say Hargraves because he's the big splash, the big money guy that's just gonna solidify the defensive line. For now, I think that's probably it. If we had re-signed Robbie, I would say Robbie, but right now that's my guy.
Maddie?
It's really tough because I don't think they're done yet. I mean, Hargrave to me is just the easiest one because that was a home run. I mean, they let off the game with a home run, like pow, and they stuck it to the team that finished ahead of them last year. So to me, that was I don't know how you lead off a game with a grand slam, but they did it, right?
Yeah.
Like there's no it was so perfect that it's tough to top until somebody hits the market.
I got your back. We had 3 walks with our re-signings.
I was gonna
and then we signed the true free agent of Hargrave, which was the Grand Slam. There you go.
Yeah,
I got your back, Matt.
Correct. Yes, thank
There
you.
you
I
go.
like that.
I was going to say, if I could change
Good
my
job,
answer,
Ty.
I would say Tayshaun Gibson, but
I do like the way they backfilled it and everything else, but honestly, my favorite signing is going to be their next one because I think with this team, no matter who they sign, odds are they're going to be productive. If they're not productive, they're not going to be here. And there's always an opportunity for them to find somebody that's lightning in a bottle and they're like, damn, where did they come from?
Mm-hmm.
And I just trust that they're going to do that because they've continued to do that. So until the well runs dry there, like keep doing your thing, you know? And they got a lot of money to play with, and there's a whole lot of people that want to play for this franchise based on the way things are set around the league. There's a reason people are showing up and doing things. So whether it's the rookie to the second year guys making that leap, the second to the third year guys making that leap this year, or somebody coming in off the free agent market, something's going to happen. But my favorite free agent signing is the next one. That's my official ruling on this, so we don't get off track.
I think mine is Jake Brendel. Continuity on that offensive line. I think
that's the most important position, honestly, in this offense.
Huge signing, yes.
So I think that's it. And then obviously my next one is Javon Hargrave, for sure. He's definitely going to help out that defensive line. Ty, what do you think?
Yeah, I like the Brendel signing, bringing him back. That was good since he's worked with both the young quarterbacks. That's going to help them out for sure. And then on the defensive side, mine is a combo of Javon Hargrave and T.Y. McGill.
Okay.
Because when T.Y. was in there, he was a good run stuffer. He played well, eating up blocks and doing the dirty work. So if we can have like them two together somehow, like I envision them two together in the middle, Bosa on one side. This is just on base downs. And then like imagine Armstead kicking back to the outside and you have a real stout defensive line now where you can't get by people as easily.
Mm-hmm.
And then you got the linebackers who just come in and just thump people. I mean, that makes for a great D line right there, especially on those like 3rd and 2, 3rd and 4, downs. Yeah, you're not going to run on us very easily. So I like that McGill-Hargrave combination, just kind of working together in the middle. 2 big guys in the middle.
And for those of you listening, Ty is the paid spokesperson for T.Y. McGill. He has been all year. Always been his guy. You've been a huge fan of his.
Something about the name, I think. I don't know.
All right, guys. Anything else?
Not for now, man. That
Yeah.
that something's going to happen here in the next week. Somebody's going to get signed. Somebody's going to go away, and we're going to talk about it next week. That's just how it works.
All right. Well, let's go to that hurry up offense and the 2-minute warning.
Where is it? Here it is.
Do we have a 2-minute warning for the 2-minute warning? Oh, there it is.
Go ahead, Maddie.
Continuing to get 1994 vibes off of this team, the more and the deeper I dig into this, especially with the turnover on the defense and a lot of the ways that I think this draft might fall. I hate to drop into the optimism after having our season ripped away and stomped on in Philly last year, but I am feeling insanely optimistic about this year. So continue to let the process take place.
Larry Krueger, thank you so much for coming on the show. You are awesome. He has me pumped for this coming season. I'm ready to go. Guys, continue to trust the Shanna plan. Please like, subscribe, go Niners.
Go back up.
Same, Jess. I would say trust the plan. I think that the team has done us well. If they didn't think the guys were going to make an impact or we couldn't afford them, let them walk. We're going to find people to replace them. Look what we've already done. The team is going to build the best roster. We already have a great team in place. We already have a great culture, great guys. I can't wait to see what happens in free agency and the draft. And I'm looking forward to next season. Thank you, Larry, for coming on. It was an amazing show and looking forward to what's to come. Go Niners.
Yeah. And Larry brought up a great point that we have uttered before. A lot of people panic talking about our Super Bowl window is closing. I don't know what you're looking at. The window's wide open. We have built a sustainable team that can threaten for years to come. So sit back and enjoy the ride because it's going to be a long ride. Hope you got your popcorn ready.
All the windows and doors are open.
That's right.
And it's 60 weeks here on the East Coast. So yes, that too.
Yes.
Can't find the video, and I'm just listening to the music. All right, we're out.
And then your screen.
See you next week, everybody.
All right, we're good.
See you next week.
And of course, for the upstart 49ers, they're 6 yards away from Pontiac. 3rd and 3.
We'll see a pickup sometime on the right side, possibly.
Montana looking, throwing in the end zone.